hear that word,
pretty straightforward.
I understand it to mean a much more stricter sense than you mean. You know, I mean like it's some fallacy has occurred, or some rule of logical inference has been violated. Now, you certainly don't mean that, because apparently there's no way that that statement does any of those things. So what do you mean?
Okay, so I mean, in the Bible definition of speaking in tongues, it's a sacred.
No, I'm talking about irrationality. What do you mean by irrationality?
Believing in something that you can't back up, that's
rules.
irrational. Believing in something you can't back up, that's irrational. It's really not that hard of a concept. I think it's a pretty straightforward terminology.
It depends what you think. It depends. Well, okay. It depends on what basis you think that they can back it up. Are you an internalist or an externalist in terms of epistemic or in terms of justification, like epistemology?
I don't identify as either, because I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay, so like, well, then let's not get all stupid with it. I won't throw the philosophy at you, but these people think, like, there's a group of people that think that in order to have something to be justified, you would have to like connect a series of propositions together, and then that's how that takes place. That's how those things are justified. This proposition is justified by these other like deeper propositions. Like,
when you say justified in what sense?
Well, think about, like, I'll give you an example. Think about like if I say it's raining outside, right? Well, like if we go to say like what justifies it's raining outside, like first of all, you might very clearly you might say like step outside, see if droplets of water are falling from the sky from a cloud, you know? But like we could ask even deeper questions. We could ask some things about your senses and the reliability of your senses. Now, those type of what I'm saying, if you want me to try, if you can't handle where it goes or whatever, boys, but I mean, what do you guys want to do?
I mean, when it comes to evidence-based,
rape him.
I'm setting up the rape right now, but people are getting weird.
The only thing we can rely on is our senses, though. So I mean,
okay, here we go.
Okay.
There we go.
What do you mean? Let me ask you a question. That seems kind of weird too, right? Because think about something like some deliverance that we know is true, not from our senses, like triangles have three sides. Well, you don't think that that's justified through your senses, so you just said something that's false.
Is sight not a sense?
No. What?
Is sight not a sense? If I can see a triangle in front of me and it has three sides.
No. See, dude, holy shit, you just stepped into that one, buddy. Speak slower. Did you know that let's say that I see a triangle, right, and it has three sides, or I see an object and it has, it doesn't, just by seeing something doesn't tell you that by definition a triangle is a thing that has three sides.
Right, but if it's demonstrably
how do I know that the next triangle I
sides?
see won't have four sides? It's because we
then
don't
it makes it a
derive
square.
those things from our senses. We don't
Because
derive
that makes
those.
it a square.
No. What I'm saying is we don't derive the truth of those things from our senses.
Right, but I would not look at an object
I
would not look at a triangle at an object with a presupposition that it might be a triangle. I look at its description, and then make my conceptuality of what that is off of that.
I'm asking you a deeper question.
I know, but like all I'm saying is that all I have is to rely on senses. I would never look at something that I don't know.
You have a lot more to rely on than that. You want me to cue you in a little bit, homie?
Sure.
You have something called pure reason, analytic thought. Okay. Now, analytic thought does not rely on your senses.
Give me an example.
What's that? Okay, sure. Take the proposition 2 + 2 = 4.
Okay, mathematics is not the best example of things that you can see.
Fine, we can do a non-mathematical example. That's fine. Let's go with the interior sum of the triangles angles equal 180 degrees in Euclidean geometry. Okay, you can't find that out from your senses. You find that out from analytically making deductions about the natures of triangles.
Okay, so if I wanted to learn how a triangle has 180 degrees, how would I do that?
Okay, first of all, you come up with a concept called degrees. It's standardized, okay?
Right, but how would I measure them? Because when I measure things in reality, right, I can't measure them if they're not in reality. Like, I don't know what you're trying to describe. I would never describe something I would never see.
Listen,
it doesn't make sense what you're saying.
You can prove these things on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Okay? I could punch you in the face and take out your eye sockets and take out all of your senses and you could figure that out in your head.
Figure what out?
That triangles have 3 sides. The interior of their angles equal 180 degrees. No one ever found those things out by looking at the world. They found those things out by going and looking at what a triangle is, the nature of what it means to be a degree, and then making deductions from that. And all of those things don't rely on your senses. They just rely on your pure analytical thought and reasoning. Okay, so look, I'm not gonna keep like, I don't want to have to say that more than 10 times as I've already had.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's necessarily true.
What isn't necessarily true?
Well, mathematics exists outside.
Counterexample, then, dude.
Mathematics.
Give me a counterexample.
If you let me finish, mathematics exists outside of our imagination, my friend. So regardless that humanity exists, it's there or not. So I mean,
what the fuck does that mean? Stop. Mathematics exists outside of our imagination. What does that even mean?
Okay, so physics, right, is not reliant on the human species existing. So just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's everything else can be imaginary. What you're saying doesn't make sense.
No. I'm talking about like think about this. Let's look at something a little bit more simple. That just has to do with meanings of words. Take this statement: bachelors are unmarried men. Can you prove or find out that bachelors are unmarried men by looking at the world? No, you can't. You can't go out and say, oh, look, this guy's a bachelor there, and he's an unmarried man. This guy's a bachelor, therefore he's an unmarried man. I've seen 1,000 bachelors, and they're all unmarried men. Therefore, deductively, the next bachelor or bachelors are unmarried men. You can't do that. That's pure definition. That's done purely analytically. Okay, that just means by the meanings of the words, and those things are done just on reflective reasoning. They have nothing to do with our senses for the 15th time.
I disagree with you on how your deductive reasoning works. I think
just provide a counterexample. Just say no.
I can't think of an example in which I wouldn't use.
Then you
my
have
senses
Then you don't have any purchase. Then you don't have any purchase to deny what I'm saying.
I do, because I don't do it. If you're saying that I do believe in things that I don't presuppose, then I don't.
No.
What am I supposed to disagree with?
The principle I just posted, you don't have any reason to think that I'm mistaken about that, motherfucker. So you shut your mouth until you provide the counterexample. How about that?
Oi, calm down.
Just because something's an unfalsifiable claim doesn't mean that it's true or not. I mean, I think that's the point of an unfalsifiable claim. I'm not saying that it's not true.
No one brought up that word. Why are you injecting words like unfalsifiable?
I'm not injecting a word. You're trying to prove something that is improvable. It's something that's unfalsifiable. You can't prove it. I can't disprove it. So what's the point?
What can't look? You can't prove that bachelors are unmarried men.
No, you're trying to say that just because something exists outside of our reality, like mathematics, that therefore means that other things can exist
what the fuck are you talking about? I never said any of that shit. If you put another word in my mouth, I will fucking kick you in your throat. I never said any of that shit.
Why are you
so angry, bro?
More careful. You need to be a little more careful.
More careful. You're over here doing ad hominem threats.
I never said any of those things. I never said therefore other things could exist or blah blah blah.
You're not really saying anything. I'm trying to make you're not really saying anything. I'm trying to make an assumption based off what you're saying.
Fuck.
He's very violent. Be careful.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to let 12-year-old Muslims come in and just ruin every conversation.
Rainy, shut up and let Shamos do his thing.
No.
Yeah, try to be a little more polite though, Shamos. Sorry. You're just going to have to be nicer.
Gently kick him in his throat.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize for that outburst. I'm in the hospital. I'm under a little bit of pain and duress. So let me just say sorry about that, and I'll try to tone it down.
So, yeah, Alex, all he's trying to say is that you can come to certain conclusions a priori, or like by armchair. And they don't rely on the senses. That's all he's saying.
I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, but
because I can believe things someone tells me.
You give a counterexample. That's what we've been asking for.
I don't.
You need a reason not to agree. Okay, so you don't have a reason to not agree, yet you still don't agree. So
well,
you're
like
fucking
if I ask you
Like,
what's
I,
well, if I ask you like what's
do some
1370, if I ask you like what's 1370 plus 2020, and you had no sensory perception, you could figure out, you could come to that knowledge, right? Just from the armchair.
Sorry, I just dropped off Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and so there's that. Maybe he could address that, but there's also the bigger question of what he was calling irrational, you know, and his definition of rational, which I think is kind of probably not a very sturdy definition, but we could use it for the conversation, is just having a belief that you can't back up. I mean, in a good deal of instances, most people do think that that is an exhibition of irrationality, but we need to check all things being equal with the case under consideration.
Shut up, Rainey.
Tom, Kathleen
Yeah.
wants to be unmuted.
You know, if he wants to come back and pick up the conversation, we can. Let's see.
Who was the one talking that I called irrational for relying on something without your senses?
I don't know if you ever said that about someone. I thought you just said that as a general statement.
I did, but there was someone that I was conversing with on. I don't remember what your name is.
I think it was some hypothetical Pentecostal we were speaking of.
Oh yeah.
God, I've
No,
got King, and I'm remembering this stuff. And what's that, dude?
No, I was just saying that I didn't mean to make such a rash statement, but most things that in philosophy that are stated without particular demonstrable evidence stem from belief systems like that.
Philosophy is generally not concerned that much about evidence. But I mean, sometimes
Right.
they are.
Well, that's what I was saying. Is most philosophical arguments are not reliant upon evidence. So, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you let me know how many philosophers you see out there conducting experiments, and then we'll figure it out. You know.
I mean, they attempt to. They fucking publish or try to attempt to publish journals all the time on shit.
I didn't know. I know that they publish papers, but I didn't know that they ever ran any experiments. Most of them have just philosophical arguments in them. I never knew any philosopher to, like try to falsify induction by testing the world, or trying to, whatever like that. Might have not been a fair example.
Fair enough.
There's a whole new field now. Experimental philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, that's been tossed around for a while. I mean, obviously the logical positivists were talking about bullshit like that. They all got annihilated, and it kind of just fell into disrepute, I guess. I don't know. Hell, you know.
I'm just saying there's a field now called experimental philosophy where they do experiments in the topics of philosophy. Game theory
sounds
type
weird.
experiments and stuff like that.
Sounds like they're stealing people's money, grant money or something. Is what it sounds like. Yeah. Whatever philosophers got on that grant are fucking loving life right now.
Probably.
I think that's probably true.
Can you give me an example of something that you would believe without your senses? I'm struggling to think of an example.
Triangles have three sides. 2 + 2 = 4.
But these are concepts that I can visualize and things. Like if I can't imagine not being able to understand them outside of my senses.
Well,
And
let's
Oh,
be
wait
a
a
little more
second.
clear about
I'm
what
not
the
saying
philosophers.
that it's not.
The-
I'm not saying, for example, that it isn't. I'm just saying that I'm not understanding.
Yeah, we could clear
how
this up pretty quickly. So we just have to understand what philosophers mean when they talk about understanding something to be true from pure reason. And so the first thing is that you have to understand the meanings of the words, okay? That's all, okay? If you understand the meanings, you understand the meaning of 2, the meaning of plus, the meaning of 2, you can extrapolate or deduce that 4 is what makes that statement true, okay? And so that's kind of what we're talking about. You have to but if you don't understand the meaning of 2, and I agree with you, we get the meanings of words from experience, but that's just not the distinction the philosophers are interested in pinpointing. They were interested in, are there things that we can know once you understand the meanings of the word first, and are there other things that you can know regardless of not without understanding the meanings of word? And you can't learn them that way. You have to learn them from empirical,
So
musing.
they'll agree that initial acquisition depends on senses and empirical evaluation and stuff like that. But that's not the point. They're saying once there is an initial acquisition, afterwards, you don't have to keep going back to the world to understand it.
What else would you go to?
You just think it through in your armchair.
Gotcha. Doesn't sound like a very reliable way to find out the truth.
No, it's the most reliable way. Deduction and pure reason is the most reliable way to find out truth, actually.
I would argue that reason is used in, most ways to find the truth, but I wouldn't say that that's the method in which you find the truth, because some people's reason is flawed.
Well, those type of flawed reasoning, are usually some type of fallacy, whether formal or informal, and philosophers have picked out very good ways of highlighting who and when people are doing such maneuvers.
Perception is flawed too.
Very so much so.
Helena, if you want to take over real quick, I just gotta call the fucking nurse to get like a phone charger or something. I'll be right back.
I thought he was sitting in a hospital bed.
He doesn't have a phone charger. So he's calling the nurse. He means he's pushing the nurse button.
Oh.
I'm actually very sympathetic to the empiricist ideas. It feels kind of like a cheat to go, well, wait a second. I'm not saying that there's a way to acquire knowledge that doesn't involve experience. I'm granting that. Well, then what the hell,
That's right. What the hell?
What the hell?
I love Helena. I think I just called you Helena. Helena. I love Helena. That's who I love.
I'm glad.
While Shamos is gone, Alex, who are you? Where'd you come from?
I literally just joined today. I have a bit of a live show on YouTube where I talk to acquaintances and family members that are
Why is that interesting?
theists. It's really not at the moment.
Oh, theists. Okay. acquaintances, family members, and theists. That's an interesting. I don't understand why theists.
Acquaintance, family
I said
members that are
that are
theists.
theists.
Oh,
Thank you.
You want to let a person finish their whole sentence, usually.
So, are you an atheist, agnostic?
I am both, I guess.
Um.
I have the lack of belief in a God, but I can't say that there isn't one. So,
Oh, so you define atheist as a lack of belief.
I mean, isn't that what it means?
There's a big argument over that.
I think if you Google atheist right now, it'll say someone who has a lack of belief in a God.
It depends, right? So you could Google it, and you could go to a bunch of different places to define it. You could go to, let's say, the Stanford Encyclopedia. You could go to any type of philosophy.
Okay, I'll make it easy for you then. I don't believe in a God.
Sure. I mean, that doesn't.
Yeah, you got to have the definition of the thing you don't believe in, Hoss.
Uh-oh.
You know, you need to know what that thing is you don't believe, right, Homer?
Sure, any of them.
Whoa, that's a big claim. So, like, what's your argument against Zeus? What's your argument against Zeus?
The
And what's
same
your
argument for all the other ones.
Okay, sure. What is it then?
The pure lack of evidence for any of them. I mean, this is usually a criticized belief I have, but
Okay,
I
I like
believe
that argument.
I believe that the lack of evidence for something is evidence against it. I mean, in my personal opinion,
Well,
obviously, I don't force
In
that on other
certain
people.
instances, it is actually, but in
Yeah,
certain
Yeah,
instances,
if you
it isn't.
expect to see something and you don't
Yeah,
see
the
it, then
evidence
it
has to
counts.
be expected, as Selena said. Like, for example,
Not
you know, the
necessarily.
thing
I'd say
needs
most
to make a
discoveries in
prediction.
science aren't expected.
What's that?
I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off too early, but I don't understand the statement you just made. Can you repeat yourself
Well,
or
let me see.
rephrase?
Let me see if I can give you two examples to better highlight what I mean. Like Helena said, if the evidence is expected and then you don't see the evidence, you could just, via modus tollens, create an argument for that thing not existing or unlikely not existing. Let me give you an example. So forest fires, right? We tend to have the expectation that all things being equal, forest fires generate smoke. So there's an expectation. If there's a forest fire, we expect to see smoke. Okay. Now that we agree, or most people are going to agree that forest fires generate smoke. But look, let's go and say, look, we think there's a forest fire in this 100-kilometer square miles. Okay. And we go and we look and there's no smoke. Okay. Therefore, we can rationally assume that there's no forest fire. Okay. And so we agree that that's a pretty good inference. Okay. But let's do another one and I'll show you why this one is kind of similar, but the evidence is not expected and it means all the difference. Have you ever heard of the rhino beetle?
No.
Well,
the rhino beetle?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the one I'm speaking of only tends to a very small bit of land down the Nile River Delta Valley. Have you ever visited the Nile River Delta Valley before?
I'll let you take a wild guess.
No, you haven't. So let's assume that you go and search your backyard fucking in your whole woods and you never find a rhino beetle. And then you say, well, I don't think that rhino beetles exist. There would be a fallacy there. And the fallacy is that rhino beetles are not expected to be in your backyard or in the woods behind your house. Okay?
So where should I expect to find Zeus?
That's what you need to that's what you need to tell me. What expectations do you think that Zeus generates?
In your mind.
Which
Given
ones?
as to how active he was at the time of the theology, I think it would be pretty. I mean, the fact that a lightning bolt happens right next to me, is that supposed to be evidence of Zeus? I mean, that's
You're
what it
the
was
one
for them
forwarding
back
the
then.
argument, so you should already
Not
have
really.
those things.
I just told you that I don't believe in
You
things
said
that I
there's
can't.
a lack of evidence, right? And I just said that those arguments work under one condition, that the evidence is expected. Then I asked you, what's the expected evidence? And you don't fucking know. So the problem with that is now
Do
you
you?
can't have an argument for there being lack of evidence unless you fund that claim there. And that's what your job is to do.
Okay, but if there's a proposition and I dismiss it because there's lack of evidence, there's no burden on me to apply any other thing other than that. If there's a proposition that A exists, right? The fact that someone has to think that insinuates that there should be evidence for it existing. There's no reason why I should have to go digging if someone offers a proposition that doesn't have evidence for
Helena,
it.
can you take over? I'm feeling a little sick.
He's just saying you don't have to produce evidence or anything like that, but you should have an understanding of what kinds of evidence is missing, right? What evidence is it that's lacking? For example, you could say like the Christian God. Well, there's a lack of evidence. For example, there'd be evidence of a flood. There'd be evidence, residual evidence from a flood, but in fact, we don't see that kind of evidence. We don't find any chariots anywhere, stuff like that. So for Zeus, I don't know the Zeus myth a lot. I think though that he mingled with mortals, didn't he? So there might be some evidence expected there. I don't know a lot about Zeus, but it seems like if you would want to have something that you could say there's evidence that's missing where I would expect to see it.
Right, but on the subject so unequivocally uninteresting, I don't think I'm going to put the effort in to look for the evidence if it's not going to present itself.
So you don't have an argument.
But
Right.
yeah, you
Well-
made your claim. What are you doing?
What could be evidence? Do you think that there even could be evidence for God? Maybe
I'm
it's not
sorry,
there.
what claim did I make?
You said that God didn't exist.
Hey, Shamos, what about an alternate explanation idea? So
did
like
not say
Zeus
that
is
at
supposed
all.
to be
I define
responsible
myself
for
as
lightning,
agnostic.
but now we have a naturalistic explanation for lightning. Is that enough to say, well, therefore it's
Well, that's
Zeus doesn't exist, or
the
is
same
it
thing
just
I'm
enough to
asking
say,
for.
therefore Zeus isn't causing lightning, but he might
Well, I
still
mean,
exist?
well, look, if you think
That's a good
that
point,
like
Helena.
Zeus is the necessary entailment like of lightning, if lightning exists, Zeus must exist or something like that, and then you might be able to start with an argument from parsimony and start to shave that away. Yeah, I think that might be one particular route you could go.
Still could be that we were just wrong about Zeus and lightning, but he's still somewhere.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
The more of those that you put holes in, it cast out on the meaning of Zeus altogether. What do you mean by Zeus if he's not the guy that does lightning and blah blah blah?
I feel like this always just leads back to deism.
I've had like 2 softballs thrown at me today. Well, not 2 softballs, couple, whatever. I've had at least a softball thrown at me in another debate that I thought I did pretty decent in, and I've got
You're not calling Lloyd a softball, were you?
No, I just think I did well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of his responses actually were non sequiturs. I was just trying to be kind. Like most of the time he never even responded to my inquiry.
Oh shit, sorry.
I'd be like, what are the dissimilarity between the inferences if you think this one's good and this one's not? It's like, well, we don't even really need to go to that. We could just literally go back to the gospel, and I'm just like, oh dude, okay, thanks for engaging.
Did you get your phone charger?
Yeah, I'm up from 3% to 4%. Life's good.
Life is good, my man. Hey, in the case of like Ocean and his arguments for the pagan gods, do you bite the bullet and say, sure, it's possible, even probable, even from a theistic Christian perspective, that these gods exist? They're just not in the, say their existence isn't necessarily in the way that Ocean would say they exist, right?
And I've never heard Ocean give a legitimate argument for paganism in my life, besides some really weak inductive BS. Like some of them are just don't even follow. They're like pragmatic, like, oh, it just makes me feel at home. And I've never heard him give a legitimate argument for paganism. I'm not really sure what you're talking about. I'm saying but to try to contact what you're saying, I think that I've heard Matt Bell Rest in peace. I heard Matt Bell one time,
Not
or
dead.
more than one time, basically appeal to shit. I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about just right then?
Yeah. So I
Ocean
was
supporting
asking.
his claims of the existence of
Oh
his
yeah.
God.
Matt Bell was like, yeah, they can exist, but they're just demons.
Yeah.
You know, like Matt Bell was totally psyched to allow for some of the pagan gods to exist because none of them were like the infinite necessary being or whatever, and they all could like fall in line with like, you know, just like, you know, yeah, they're powerful, so are demons, you know, like, yeah, Christianity, you know, totally allows for this. Yeah, I've heard shit like that.
But do you have any opinion on a position like that?
Well, I mean, if you're at that point in the debate, fucking go for it. You know, that's what I say. If you're already there, just go for it.
Because I kind of hold that position, but I've never really been challenged on it, and I don't know if any of the other Christians I know that are rather intelligent hold that position.
I've only ever heard Ocean say that, you know, his gods exist in a historical record. So it's almost like he's doing some kind of CBT for himself.
No, he says he has a personal experience.
Yeah, I've heard him give that one.
I mean, I think if I had some kind of personal experience, I could see myself believing in God.
Yeah, I mean, that's the type of thing that usually gets people to believe stuff, you know?
Like, I always say that he would have to, like, take me on the fucking Ghost of Christmas Past, like, whirlwind fucking tour and, like, show me some novel shit, you know? But I mean,
Yeah, that would be pretty convincing.
Yeah, I would be convinced by that probably.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would. I think a lot of people that deny it, like, they would, I don't think they're really being serious or would understand, like, what the psychology would be like going on at that moment. So, yeah.
I'm assuming you're on some painkillers.
Yeah.
Are they
I don't
helping?
know if, yeah, I can't feel anything down there. Like, it doesn't bother me. The concussion is what's causing my breathing to be kind of elevated.
Do you have any swelling, brain swelling?
No, it's not that bad. Thanks to my girlfriend dosing me with colloidal silver without my knowledge.
Without your knowledge?
Yeah, that's another story. Someone wants to tell it, they can.
So can I ask you stuff like, how's your Christian? Are you Christian still, or?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Okay. Might you unblock me?
Oh,
Like, why the hell did you block
it's
me?
a
How about
Facebook
that one?
account, so no one's blocked on this account. All my other accounts have been terminated by Discord terms of service, so whether you're blocked on those accounts or not means no difference anymore.
What do you think of Frege's notion that the reference for all propositions is the same, namely truth or truth value?
What does that mean?
I don't have a lot to say about it. Like, I mean, I know a little bit about, Frege's sense reference distinction, and, all of that, but I'm not sure, like, remember or recall the part where he's talking about that the reference itself is truth or blah blah. I mean, if you want to like kind of talk to me and forward the view or something, we can talk about this.
Well, it's just basically that like just like a proper name picks out the particular object in the world that it names, every proposition picks out the truth value, and that's it.
I don't know if that's saying anything though. Like, I mean, maybe if you forward it as like some type of function or something, but like in the way that you said it there, I don't know if it's really adding anything. I mean, that just seems to be the meaning of what like propositions, the nature of how propositions function at all. So, I mean, I'm not.
It allows you to do away with meaning when you're doing logic. You can just completely ignore meaning.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're doing formal logic, you can do away with the bulk of meaning. But I don't know if that's controversial. Are there other logics you're referring to, Helena, besides like formal?
I was just talking about classical logic. This is one way to view propositional logic.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're going to make of propositions Platonic objects, this is a way to do it.
Oh, that's interesting.
So then the senses just become, the thought then becomes the sense of the proposition. That's where the sense reference thing is. It just seems kind of weird to me that every single proposition has every single true proposition has the exact same reference, namely truth. They're all pointing to the exact same thing.
Yeah, I have some views on that, but I'm feeling faint.
Jeez.
You think only one thing exists? Or that only one thing can be referred to?
Just saying that every single true proposition, for example, is picking out just one thing, and that is just truth.
What is truth, though? Like, is it a thing? Is it like an apple?
I don't think so.
Is it like we're looking at like one pixel of a picture on a TV?
Do you really think truth is a thing?
I don't know.
I think it just is what it is, and then we assign whether we think it's.
But is it like, what is it? It is what it is. What is it?
It's what is. I don't know. It's just what's true.
Oh my god! What the fuck?
Vacuous.
It's hard for me to see how anything other than sentences can be true. Like, a tree can't be true.
Can a tree be truly a tree?
I don't know. What do you mean by truly?
Let's say
like, there's this view of facts. It's hard for me to see a fact as anything other than like a true proposition, but people sometimes say fact just to mean the actual state of affairs. But
Right.
if you're going to say that a fact is the actual state of affairs, then how can something like that be true or false?
Right. It can all be true.
Are
Or
they
wait,
just-
what does true mean?
Are they just presuming that the actual state of affairs can exist and then putting that on whatever statement they make?
I'm not sure. But it's interesting how frequently philosophers, especially logic philosophers, use the word fact, right? They do this assenting. They assent a billion times where it seems unnecessary to me. There's something wrong. Something is wrong, and it's been bothering me forever. And I think I'm going to try to figure out what it is that bothers me so much. There's something wrong with saying being a such and such is a property, right? The property of being a tree, that bothers me. I can understand logically it's so much easier, but like if you look at the quantifiers and things like that, they only allow you to predicate about the subject in a way, whereas to quantify over the subject one, I think most of the time that's not what we're really doing. We're not really talking about the subject. I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but something is really irritating me about not being able to quantify over the predicate and stuff like that. There's something wrong. From a psychological standpoint, it matters a lot to me. It's not mapping anything that we do. It's just seems less and less useful the more I learn about it.
What?
I think Shamos left.
I'm so confused. Like, can you state it concisely, like what you're objecting to
That would
again,
be
Helen?
correct.
I can't quite state it precisely. It's very fuzzy right now. I'm just sort of starting to talk about it out loud.
Are you spitballing it, Montana?
Something's bothering me about formal logic and the inability to quantify over the predicate. I think could be what it is that's bothering me.
We could be able to do that?
I think a lot of times our natural language is actually doing that. We're not really talking. We really want to quantify over the predicate, I think, with some of our natural sentences. These are just fleeting thoughts that have suddenly occurred.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
But yeah, you wouldn't be the right person to talk about this with.
Oh my god, I love Montana.
What's that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not into cooperative discovery.
Get fucked, Pagan.
There's a song in the
Nice.
musical. There's a song in the musical 1776 where they say about John Adams that you're obnoxious and disliked cannot be denied.
I don't think Pagan's obnoxious, and I don't dislike him.
You don't think
But-
Pagan is obnoxious?
Here we go.
No,
Are you
no,
I have to
it's
agree with
just
Jack
he
on
has a
this one.
style. He has a style where he wants to pick apart.
You're over talking
And
me.
you
You're
can't
over
bring-
talking me. You're over talking me. You're over talking me.
Stop.
That's a style.
This must be,
That's not a
this
style.
must
That's
be-
when he
It's a
gets
fact.
upset. Wait a
This must
minute.
be
That's
the-
when he gets upset.
This must be the craziest thing that Helena has ever said, except for that Adolf Hitler was an asset to the community. That
I
Hogan-
never said that.
Hogan-
Montana.
Stop
That-
spreading lies.
that Hogan,
Jack's just
that
lying.
Hogan is not obnoxious. Just the craziest. That's just the loopiest.
Wait,
It's
Jack,
so insane.
did you really like flip shit out? Did you really flip out on Brenda last night?
Yeah.
What happened?
To her, or was it just when you came in and gossiped about
No,
her? Was
to
there
her.
another time? To her. I missed
Yeah.
it.
I am really glad that I blocked Brenda now.
What happened? Wait, I hear Tom has a recording.
Why would you talk to a pea zombie?
Womp womp.
You don't. You
Tom,
couldn't even
is it true that you have
reproduce
a recording of this?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I
Will
asked
it
you
be
to
uploaded,
reproduce
or is
his
it going to be one of
argument,
those things that the audio sucks, but we can still look at it like unlisted?
The audio sucks?
Well, I know that sometimes like the audio isn't good, so you don't upload it. But I know that sometimes you also upload it,
No,
like,
I
just
can.
for people to listen to.
I'll do it right now for you guys.
Yes, thank you.
I have to trim it and then render it and then upload it. So give me about 20 minutes.
I was thinking about some of the stuff you said, Jack, about how she just was going into text and making these crazy claims and not supporting them. But I'm thinking maybe she's pulling a Jack, right? Because you like to do that. You just come in, make a claim, and wait, and just sit around and wait for everybody to go insane over it without even asking you what you mean. Like, you would come into our Hangouts and say, only atheists can interpret the Bible, and you would just stop and wait.
see,
Maybe she was doing that.
There's a crucial disanalogy there, right? Which has to do with the concept of talking out of one's ass. Right? There's a distinction between.
But my point is, you have an argument.
When not
You had an
talking
argument
out
in
of
your.
one's ass, and making those kinds of statements when one is talking out of one's ass, right?
But you have.
Talking out of his ass now.
You had an argument like in your pocket, and you would come in and make these outrageous claims just to sort of watch the hoopla, and just to wait and see when would somebody ever ask you, so that you could start to present the argument.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking.
Maybe
out
she's
of my
doing
ass.
that.
I wasn't talking out of my ass, right? Brenda talks out of her ass, right? She's just a motivated reasoner.
Maybe she has an argument for why. What was one of the things you said?
No, we've established that multiple times when we said, why would you say something like this, right? And we ended up getting a load of garbage, right? Every time, right?
Hey,
we say to
Helena.
her, why would you say something like this? And then we get a load of garbage.